Welcome to It's the Groove, the podcast that takes you under the wrapper to uncover the hidden connections in the music we love. Hi, I'm Dave, and as always, I'm joined by the 80s music muse herself, Kelly. Hi, Kelly. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing super. We have an incredibly special episode today that I've been looking forward to personally for quite some time, where we shine a spotlight on one of the most revered drummers in modern music history, Jeff Porcaro. Known for his impeccable timing, subtle finesse, and genre-defining grooves, Porcaro's work shaped the sound of countless hits across rock, pop, soul, and jazz fusion. Whether you know him from his legendary shuffle on Toto's Rosanna or his session magic behind Steely Dan, Michael Jackson, or Boss Skaggs, Jeff's rhythmic fingerprint is everywhere and unmistakable. Kelly and I realized a long time ago that so many of the songs which comprise the soundtrack of our lives were built on Jeff's grooves. But this is not just a tribute, it's a celebration of the groove itself. Jeff did not just play drums, he sculpted feel, space, and movement. His legacy continues to inspire drummers and fans alike more than 30 years after his untimely passing. We will honor his legacy with a very brief but amazing selection of songs bearing his unmistakable groove. Sit back, tune in, and let us journey through the rhythm and resonance of Jeff Porcaro's incredible career. But Kelly, before we actually get there, I had a quick question for you. So, how do you know if a drummer is at the door?
Is this like a dad joke?
The knocking speeds up, it slows down, and he doesn't know when to come in. Sorry about that. Anyway, back to Jeff. As we prepared to record this episode, we realized that this subject matter was too vast and the nuance too deep for just our amateur understanding. We decided to recruit a professional. Coming to It's the Groove from across the pond, we have a musician, engineer, lecturer, composer, and performer who has collaborated with Shaggy and Carly Rae Jepsen. Phil Wood, welcome to It's the Groove.
Hey guys.
Hi.
So Phil, tell us a little bit about Jeff's early career. How did he get started?
So Jeff started drumming at 7 years old under the tutorship of his dad, Joe Porcaro, who was a percussionist. He grew up in the San Fernando Valley in LA, gaining experience with local bands and idolizing drummers such as Jim Keltner and Jim Gordon. At 17, while still a senior in high school, he auditioned for and joined Sonny and Cher's touring band, which included performing on their TV show, The Sonny and Cher Show. Around the same time, he occasionally filled in on drums for Seals and Crofts. When he was 19, he was playing a jazz fusion gig at a club in LA called Dante's, when Walter Becker and Donald Fagen of Steely Dan walk in, watched the set, and asked him to play on their US tour supporting the Countdown to Ecstasy album. Obviously, he picked up more work with them and played on more albums and did more touring. From that point, everything snowballed for Jeff, as he gained access to top players and took on high-profile session work for the likes of Boz Skaggs, Michael McDonald, Michael Jackson, and hundreds more. Parallel to that, by 1977, he'd co-founded Toto with brother Steve Porcaro, friends David Page, Steve Lukather, David Hungate, and later on his brother Mike Porcaro. The rest is history. Jeff became a monster of a session drummer.
So what are some of the attributes that made him so successful?
I mean, obviously his unbelievable skill, but most of all his timing, his precision, his groove, his taste, his feel, which made him stand out. Certainly in a world that was using click tracks more and more, with sequence parts and blends between real drum kits and drum machines, which really need to sit very tightly together in order to work properly. He didn't overplay and wasn't concerned with drum solos, tricks, or general showing off. He just didn't need to. He could, of course, but he chose not to. Jeff had the ability to make people's music sound, much better than they ever imagined it could, which is what happens when you record with somebody that tight. Everything sounds better, not just the drums. If you do a gig with a super tight drummer, it's not just good, it's a beautiful experience. You all just sound better. Jeff was the opposite to what you often see in, say, progressive rock bands where they've got a guy who's great on drums, but he's really playing just for himself in that kind of sort of insular way. A lot of those bands tend to hang everything off the drummer. Jeff saw himself much more as a supporting timekeeper, but was so skilled at it, he could make everyone shine and also put everybody in that pocket. And that's his own magic power, really, which made him particularly sought after. He also had a very good understanding of the recording and production process and, what to look for in a good recording engineer.
Well, we'll get into the tunes in just a moment, but before we do, tell us a little bit about Jeff as a person. What made him so unforgettable?
Well, he was known to be particularly humble, kind, and thoughtful. He was obviously brought up very well. He often deflected praise, and he wasn't really all about money like a lot of people are. He was particularly socially sensitive to, other artists' situations and would help them out, even if it meant playing for free. He also helped other drummers out who he welcomed, without being competitive. He also liked helping younger drummers too.
We've heard a lot of stories about how he would even pass up a gig or hand off a gig to another drummer to help them get started, because certainly, as you said, he was a really busy guy in the whole session scene. So, and I think we'll talk a little bit about the session scene as well, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Well, let's get into some tunes. Kelly?
Okay, the first tune we're going to start with is Lido Shuffle. Such a great tune. Boz Scaggs and David Paich wrote it for Silk Degrees, the Silk Degrees album. And you could totally hear Toto's DNA all over that record. Jeff Porcaro was so young when he started working with Boz and already was playing like a seasoned pro. Boz said the song actually started from a Fats Domino groove, the Fat Man, that same kind of driving shuffle beat. He played around with it on the piano, brought it to David Paich, and it turned into the Lido Shuffle. And of course, the band behind it, Paich, Porcaro, and David Hungate, basically Toto before Toto. The song climbed to number 11 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 13 in the UK. Not bad for a piano jam that turned into a hit. What do you think about this one, Phil?
Well, it's an amazing sounding swung shuffle, but really the main thing that I think about when I listen to this song is it's just another great example of what Jeff was like. Boz Scaggs at the time was very likely going to be dropped by his record label around the time they were making Silk Degrees. Jeff understood this and charged him just his basic rate, even though he could have charged a lot extra because of all the extra time they'd spent working on the record. The other guys, David Hungate and David Paich, did too. And after the album became massively successful, as we know, Boz gave them all $30,000 each, which Jeff said he bought a house with.
Wow.
Those are the days when you could buy a house in LA for $30,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this song is one, and the album obviously was what put boss on the map, right? And, you know, he has gone on to a really long and successful career, but it's Lido Shuffle and the songs Lowdown off this album that, like you said, Paige and Jeff were huge in putting together. So let's listen to Lido Shuffle.
Lido missed the boat that day. He left the shack, but that was all he missed, and he ain't coming back. He had a tombstone bar and a juke joint car. He made it stop just long enough to grab a handle off the top. Next stop, Chi-Town. Lido put the money down and let it roll. He said, one more job ought to get it. One last shot, or we quit it. One for the road, Lido. Whoa, he's for the money, he's for the show. Lido's waiting for the Lido. Whoa, he said, one more job ought to get it. One last shot before we quit it. One more for the road.
Okay, Kelly, what's next?
Next, we have FM by Steely Dan. This song was not released as part of a Steely Dan album. Instead, it was produced as a theme song for the 1978 film of the same name. The film never got off the ground, but the song became a top 40 hit. Jeff had played with Steely Dan quite a bit, doing all the songs except for one on the Katy Lied album. Unlike the Asia album, Fagen and Becker used a stripped-down ensemble with only Jeff and Victor Feldman on percussion, a sax solo by Chris Lee, and backing vocals by Don Henley, Glenn Frey, and Timothy Schmidt of the Eagles. Phil, I've got to ask you about Jeff's grooves on this one. There is such a laid-back precision to it. Can you break down what makes his playing so special on here?
Well, you said it right when you say laid back, which is what it is. But it's another. The word that I'll always use is pocket. You know, the relationship with the bass in particular. It's like they're one thing. It's like you can't quite tell where Jeff's kick is and where the bass is as such. They're one beautiful thing. You know, and Jeff was brought in to overdub his drum part on this song. So it's likely that they already had a demo drum track and they weren't, you know, that in love with it. So Jeff worked to a click track and overdubbed his part. He called it one of, well, I mean, he didn't like to, he was quite self-critical, if you like, but he called this the one recording he was truly happy with.
That's amazing. And, you know, Steely Dan were perfectionists. We know that. And they were always looking after the number one drummers. You mentioned Jim Keltner, Jim Gordon. We've talked about Bernard Purdy. We've talked about Rick Marotta. Steve Gadd was on Asia. They had the best of the best of the best. And for Jeff to be, you know, chosen and handpicked for this is pretty incredible. So let's listen to FM.
Bury the bottle, mama. It's grapefruit wine. Kick off your high heel sneakers. It's party time. The girls don't seem to care what's on, as long as they play till dawn.
Okay, next we have Two by Toto. As Phil has told us, Jeff and his high school classmates, David Page and Steve Lukather. Can you imagine that high school band that they must have had?
Yeah.
When they were done the production of Silk Degrees, the label actually suggested that those guys and David Hungate, formed their own band, and they kind of chuckled because I think that had been their plan all along. So they went into the studio, and off their debut album comes "Hold the Line." This song achieved top 5 status on the pop charts, and Jeff had an interesting quote about this song. He said, and I quote, "This was me trying to play like Sly Stone's original drummer, Greg Errico, who played drums on Hot Fun in the Summertime." Do you remember that one, Kelly?
Oh, I do. Yes.
Yeah. The hi-hat is doing triplets. The snare drum is playing 2 and 4 backbeats, and the bass drum is on 1 and the and of 2. That 8th note on the second beat is an 8th note triplet feel pushed. When we did the tune, I said, gee, this is going to be a heavy 4 on the floor rocker, but we want a sly groove. The triplet groove of the tune was David's writing. It was taking the sly groove and meshing it with a harder rock caveman approach. End of quote. So that was the first song that really put the band Toto on the map. Phil, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, sly groove is definitely right. I love the pushes on the kicks at the sort of end of each pattern. They're just genius and really make it for me. And then, of course, it straightens out for the choruses. You don't get those little pushes. I love that kind of bouncy groove. I often wonder about how polite it might sound without the pushes as such. It might sound, really straight ahead, but, it's such a great track. It really is.
That's a great example of how, a little nuance on the part of Jeff really helped propel that song. So let's listen to Hold the Line. Next, of course, is Toto's iconic hit, Rosanna. This one reached number 2 on the charts and also won the Grammy for Record of the Year. The entire song is built upon the halftime shuffle Jeff developed just for this song. Famously, Jeff credits 3 influences: Bernard Purdie's classic Purdie Shuffle that you hear on Steely Dan's Home at Last, Led Zeppelin drummer John Bonham's Shuffle on Fool in the Rain, and the Bo Diddley Beat. This song features 3 other artists that we love. Of course, Steve One Take Lukather on guitar, David Page, and Jeff's brother Steve on keyboards. And by the way, the outro is amazing and often got cut off on the radio play. But the outro on this is a spontaneous jam session that you're just going to have to listen to. Phil, what do you think about Rosanna?
Well, I mean, it's a pretty a big deal for Jeff because he was already well known, but he got astronomically famous because of Rosanna and, of course, the Rosanna Shuffle. The song itself has everything I love to hear in a song. Amazing parts throughout and gorgeous crisp horns. There's a lot of songs that start with drums, but not too many intros that command your attention like Rosanna's does. Maybe Billie Jean, Superstition, and then perhaps in jazz, Take 5 are probably in that same bracket. But, when Rosanna starts, it's Rosanna, and it's largely because of Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, what do you think?
Oh, well, I love the song, especially the jam session at the end. That Rosanna Shuffle is really a great part of it.
Awesome. All right, let's listen to Rosanna.
All I wanna do when I wake up in the morning is see your eyes. Rosanna, Rosanna. Never thought that a girl like you could ever care for me. Rosanna. All I wanna do in the middle of the evening is hold you tight. Rosanna, Rosanna. I didn't know you were looking for more than I could ever be. Not for a year since you went away, Rosanna, yeah. Now she's gone, and I have to say, meet you all the way. Meet you all the way. Rosanna, yeah. Meet you all the way. Meet you all the way.
Kelly, what do you have next?
Author's Theme, The Best That You Can Do by Christopher Cross. This song hit #1 and also won an Academy Award and a Golden Globe for Best Original Song. This song features Toto members Jeff, Steve Lukather, and David Hungate, plus Michael Amoritan on keyboards, and a sizzling sax solo by Ernie Watts. What do you think about this one, Phil?
Well, in terms of a drum track, it's a completely masterful, total drum performance for me, and it lays right back at times, and then the fills sort of explode and seem to move, with the full ensemble, very much like a big band might. I love the way the cymbals sound too. There's a really lovely shimmer to them. It just sounds so classy. A gorgeous, gorgeous layer of drums.
Let's listen to Arthur's Theme.
Living his life one day at a time, showing himself a pretty good time, laughing about the way they wanted to be. When you get caught between the moon and New York City, I know it's crazy, but it's true. If you get caught between the moon and New York City, the best that you can do, best that you can do, best that you can do is fall in love.
Okay, next we have a song from Michael McDonald's debut album, of course. That would be I Keep Forgetting. This song hit the top 10, becoming a huge hit. Michael was already a star from his time with the Doobie Brothers, but this is the one that put him on the map as a solo artist. And of course, he recruited an all-star cast, including Steve One Take Lukather on guitar, Greg Fillinganes on keys, and Louis Johnson on bass. Phil, what are your thoughts about I Keep Forgetting?
Yeah, it's that word pocket again. It's such a pocket groove. The pattern he's playing on the hi-hats is difficult because to get that particular feel, He used one hand to play the 16th notes, and that's physically very, very difficult and taxing. He said that he actually broke his stick partway through the take they used, and because of that, there's some accented hi-hat strokes in there. You know, there's also those little extra fast kick drums towards the end that he adds, and Jeff being Jeff, he's smart enough to only do them a couple of times, and where other drummers might overdo it and keep repeating it, you know, that's such a cool little part towards the end.
Yeah. Let's listen to I Keep Forgetting.
I keep forgetting we're not in love anymore. I keep forgetting things will never be the same again. I keep forgetting how you made that so clear. I keep forgetting every time you're near, every time I see your smile, hear your hello saying you can only stay a while. And I know that it's hard for you to say the things we both know.
Next, we have Beat It by Michael Jackson off the Thriller album. This song reached #1 on the chart and won 2 Grammy Awards, one for Song of the Year and the other for Best Male Rock Vocal Performance. The personnel included the Normal Toto Gang, Jeff and Steve Porcaro, Steve One Take Lukather, Greg Philgaines on keys, and of course Eddie Van Halen on that sizzling guitar solo. So Phil, what do you think about Beat It?
This one's all about Jeff's precision. It's a blend between Jeff on an acoustic drum kit and the drum machine you can hear at the start, you know, in the intro in a very sort of naked way. And they've tried to find a balance with the snare drum of Jeff's kit and the snare drum of the drum machine where you're not quite sure which is which. The performance itself is actually quite minimal, but it really drives the song with quite a rock edge to it.
All right, let's listen to Beat It.
They told him, don't you ever come around here. Don't wanna see your face, you better disappear. The fire's in their eyes and their words are really clear. So beat it, just beat it. You better run, you better do what you can. Don't wanna see no blood, don't be a macho man. You wanna be tough, better do what you can. So beat it, but you wanna be bad, just beat it. Beat it, no one wants to beat it. Showing how funky, strong is your fight. It doesn't matter who's wrong or right. Just beat it, just beat it, just beat it, just beat it.
Kelly, what's next?
Okay, next we have Mornin by Al Jarreau. Written by Jarreau, David Foster, and Jay Graydon. It was the lead single from the album Jarreau and hit the top 10 on the adult contemporary and R&B charts. This one is for our #1 fan, my mom, Rosa. Personnel includes Jarreau, David Foster on keys, Jay Graydon on guitar, and Abe Laboriel on bass. Produced by Jay Graydon, this one's a favorite of our friend of the program, drummer Tris M. Bowden. He actually mentioned during our chat with him how much he loved playing on that song. And I get it, it's a joyful track. Fun fact, in 2006, Al Jarreau reworked the song with George Benson for their Giving It Up album, and it hit #1 on the US jazz charts. What do you think about Mornin by Al Jarreau, Phil?
Well, it's possibly one of the most radio-friendly songs ever written, isn't it? You know, if you listen to any jazz or smooth jazz or new adult contemporary type radio station, you know, you'll hear this every morning, probably several times, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they were smelling a hit when they were writing it, and used Jeff, you know, with that in mind. So, you know, if you're smelling a hit, you call Jeff, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
I love this song, and you're right. If you want to go back and check our episode with Tristan Bowden, we talk about his work with Al. He idolized Al, and this is one of those songs that was instrumental in putting Al on the popular charts after all that time in the jazz world. So let's listen to Mornin. Okay, up next we have a song by Lionel Richie from his Can't Slow Down album. Yes, we're talking about Running with the Night. This track starts with a tasty hi-hat part by Jeff. The song also famously has the guitar solo by Steve Lukather that was no takes. The engineer was playing the song through for Lukather to listen, and as it played, he jammed along with it. When the song ended, Lukather said, "I'm ready," and the engineer, who had been recording, said, "That was the take." Now, I don't usually comment on music videos, but I have to comment on this one because it has the amazing feeling as a lonely bridesmaid. Now, personally, I can't imagine Sheila E. ever being lonely, but okay, I guess.
Yeah, in what universe?
Phil, any thoughts about Running with the Night?
Well, this one's another sort of example of Jeff's precision again. I mean, there's sections of this where there's drum machine type sounds, which they, you know, probably went with first of all on their own and then decided maybe they didn't like it or it didn't sound right. They probably also tried just an acoustic drum kit and decided it didn't sound right. So they get Jeff in, who can blend very tightly with the electronic type drums and, you know, groove it all. All of a sudden, both the acoustic and electronic aspects of the drums mesh and start sounding amazing, you know. That happens on a lot of hits. Blends are a big thing, much bigger than most people think, you know. A lot of drum reinforcement goes on where you've got electronic drums underpinning acoustic kits, and it's often a recipe for a hit, you know.
That's a really interesting take that maybe I know I was not aware of, and maybe many of our listeners aren't aware of, that there's real art. And I think that's, you know, some of the work that you do, right, is to actually help to blend the different different sounds, the live drums and the electronics.
Yeah, I mean, it's really because acoustic drum kits are particularly difficult to record well. They're easy to record, but if you want something that sounds really amazing, that's difficult. Studio time's expensive. Of course, you've got to use somewhere that's got the space, a particular room that sounds a certain way. And a really good way to make a drum kit pop even more is to blend in, classic drum machine samples from the likes of Lynn, Roland, Yamaha, those sort of companies. It's been done since the start of drum machines,
Right. I'll listen, and if it's just the machine, after a while it gets kind of boring. And that's where the artistry of a guy like Jeff, who, like you pointed out in a couple of examples, he'll know exactly when to, it's not just the fills, but it's also those little extra embellishments that he puts in.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, right? That's the real difference between that live drumming and what you get from a machine. So
that's it.
So let's listen to Running with the Night. The last song that we're going to look at is Stay the Night, and this is a Chicago song that starts with Jeff's snare hits. Now, we selected this song partly because it's one of the few Chicago songs during this era that did not include Danny Seraphine. Of course, after a couple more albums, Seraphine left the band to be replaced by Tristan Bowden. As we mentioned, we interviewed Tris recently. Go back and check out that episode. It's really terrific. Stay the Night is really a drum-driven track. It's sung by Peter Cetera, produced by David Foster, with the normal Chicago lineup, including Bill Champlin, Robert Lamb, Lee Loughnane, Walt Pearzader, and Jimmy Pankow. Foster also brought Steve Lukather in to handle the sizzling guitar solo, although there's no word on if he did it in one take or not. So Phil, any comments on Stay the Night?
Well, this track is a departure from Chicago's previous kind of sound, and they obviously wanted a more cutting edge sound for the time. So there's a lot of gated reverb on the kit, particularly on the snare and tom-toms. That's where they add reverb to the drum kit, but choke it short so it doesn't ring on and it sounds particularly aggressive. I guess in terms of the track itself, it kind of, to me, it sort of reminds me of a kind of Toto track anyway, really. So perhaps that was part of the thought process of getting Jeff in anyway.
Yeah. There's something about it that, like you said, it's definitely different from a Chicago track, but it was always one of the ones that I enjoyed. Kelly, any thoughts about this one?
Yeah, I just remember talking about how this was at the point where they decided to change their sound, and we spoke about that in our David Foster episode. If you want to check that out, please do.
Awesome. Let's listen to Stay the Night.
I don't want you to misunderstand me. I just want to say what's on my mind. No need to hit me with an attitude, because I haven't got the time. I want you to know one thing is certain. I truly love your company. And I won't take no if that's your answer. At least that's my philosophy. Stay the night, there's room enough here for two. Stay the night, I'd love to spend it with you. Stay the night, why don't we call it that day? No one can stop us, nothing is in the way.
Okay, Phil, before we wrap up, you have some interesting thoughts and ideas about, what separates the elite LA session musicians in this era from kind of the run-of-the-mill musician. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I guess we better take a look at, what happens in the normal world with a typical drummer sort of studio experience first. In any sort of given regular situation, a drummer turns up to the studio in his car with the drums in the trunk or the boot, as we'd say here, spends ages carrying up the step and setting them up. By the time he's done that, he's tired out and needs to tune them. Then he gets to a decent sound and rehearses. A massive chunk of studio time's already gone, and then he proceeds to start recording when he's tired out, which isn't good for anybody, and certainly not the music. So, other than having much better ability than most drummers, if you hire a top LA session drummer, they'll have people who maintain and set their equipment up for them. A truck will turn up well before the session full of gear. Somebody will set the kit up for the drummer. In the back of the truck, there's all kinds of other drums and cymbals, so they can give you any sound you want. Eventually, the session drummer himself will turn up fresh and rehearsed, full of ideas. Then it's likely that their people who set all the gear up for them will go off to another session at another studio for the same drummer and prepare everything for the next artist.
Sounds like a whole enterprise going on, huh?
Yeah, it's a totally different culture.
Yeah. Those were the days, and we know that because we love so much of that music from that era. It's one of our favorite, things is all this music that was created by a lot of the same cast, of people because they were so good at what they did. So great.
But it's
by the
still
way,
like it's still like that. I mean, that culture still exists, with not just drummers, everybody really.
Okay. Yeah. Great. So, Phil, before we let you go, tell us a little bit about what you're up to and maybe how we can get a hold of you.
Well, I mean, I work with my good friend, Grammy Award-winning mixer Robert Orton on all sorts of projects. I occasionally do composition jobs. You can get hold of me at my site, which is philwoodmusic, as one word, .com, or on Twitter, which is also philwoodmusic, or basically, apart from there's one guy who uses the same handle as me that's nothing to do with me, so he gets a lot of my visits and searches. And of course, I get a lot of Phil Woods, the sax player's traffic as well. So, cool with it.
I did have to do a double take on that. We were celebrating National Saxophone Day yesterday, and of course, Phil Woods, the sax guy, has contributed a lot in that area. So I remember seeing your name and like, wait a minute, this is.
Yeah, I'm also
So,
by
anyway.
heart as well, apparently.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for adding your expertise and insight.
Oh, you're very
into
welcome.
Yeah. Hey, Bill, could you tell us one last story about Jeff's relationship with his fellow drummer, Vinny Colito?
Yeah, so Vinny Colaiuta, who's probably best known for playing drums with Sting and Frank Zappa, was a good friend with Jeff Porcaro, and this quote comes from Vinny. And Vinny was certainly in the same bracket as Jeff as a drummer, so he's particularly relevant. Anyway, Vinny was playing a gig one night at the Baked Potato in LA, and Jeff was in attendance that night. And this tells you really quite a lot about what Jeff was like. Vinny was playing in the middle of a song, and he closed his eyes to stop sweat getting in them. And he realised his hi-hat pedal had stopped working somehow. Anyway, he opens his eyes and looks down to find Jeff lying underneath him, smiling up at him and fixing his hi-hats. So Jeff had spotted the problem, probably at some distance, climbed up and felt he needed to help out. And that's, of course, exactly what he did.
And Vinny didn't miss a beat, and Jeff helped keep the groove going, huh?
That's it.
Oh, that's great. Okay, Kelly.
Okay. This episode of It's the Groove celebrates the extraordinary legacy of Jeff Porcaro through the songs that showcase his rhythmic genius. From the slick shuffle of Lido Shuffle with Boz Scaggs to Toto's powerhouse hits like Rosanna and Hold the Line. Jeff's versatility was amazing. Feeling the soulful rhythm on Michael McDonald's I Keep Forgetting and his precision drives on Michael Jackson's Beat It. Also in the lush textures of Chicago's Stay the Night. Porcaro's touch was unmistakable. This episode is a rhythmic journey through the grooves that defined an era and the drummer who made them so unforgettable.
Thanks for listening. Please hit like, subscribe, share this with your friends, and remember, it's not the beat, it's the groove. Thanks for listening.
Bye!